Dad. Want to see something?
What?
The journey of Caesar is in many ways the journey that the movie takes. And to have Andy Serkis play Caesar has been above and beyond my wildest hopes and expectations.
He's really brought a depth to the character, and once he's in it, it's just this very well-rounded and deep character who goes through this incredible transformation.
You know, and Andy is such an incredible actor. He gave really fantastic performances. You really feel this character go through a whole series of discoveries and setbacks and revelations, and he tells that story all in his face and in his body.
And it's just so great that in the world of performance capture, Andy Serkis is top of his field.
So what's your secret?
Oh, I can't take any credit. It's in his genes.
I think you're being very modest. He's pretty amazing.
Andy Serkis has created this new kind of performance in a way, and he fell into it. I mean, he was cast as Gollum just for his voice, and then I guess Peter Jackson realized what a great physical performance he was giving, and that he should try and capture that in some way. So Andy kind of fell into this performance capture world and has really pioneered it, and so Rupert wanted him immediately.
That was great, the reactions.
He's one of those actors that's embraced the technology because he understands the potential of what it can achieve. And he's one of those actors that really understands that every nuance that he gives is conveyed onto the screen.
What makes Andy a really great performer in this kind of role, starting with Gollum on Lord of the Rings to the King Kong, and especially in the role of Caesar, is that he brings a lot of experience to it that's really relevant.
The basic usage of performance capture is to create a fidelity to the actor's performance. So when you see it on the screen, you will see the apes, but they're apes which are infused with the heart and soul of an actor's performance.
And Andy complements that in the work that he's done with us because he understands the animation process that goes through afterwards, so he knows what we're going to be able to add on to it afterwards so that everyone actually understands the nuances and the subtlety of the performance.
It's one of the technical and creative merges that we have in the movie. So technologically, we need to be able to capture Andy in his performance.
Take your stinking paw off me, you damn dirty ape! No!
But there are times where Andy's presence is bigger than Caesar, so we use Devon for blocking and for being able to see a shape or a character that's more the actual size of Caesar.
Cut.
Working with Andy has been really awesome. I've learned so much working with him. He's amazing at it, and just kind of watching him mostly, I guess, or following him, and just really looking at everything he does to try and do it the exact same.
So the technique that we use is to first capture the scene with the performer who's going to be, in this case, Caesar, for example. We would perform the scene with Andy. And then afterwards, you'll do other things to try to fill in the missing gaps. Like you'll record the whole scene again without Andy so that we have information of what the camera might expect to see behind him, because he's bigger than Caesar. And so you have to paint in a lot of things to help take Andy out of the set. You might do it with a smaller performer or a stand-in just walking through the set just to get an actual size reference. There's things that you do to try to figure out what the lighting was doing, what the camera was doing on set. There's a lot of information that has to get gathered to kind of recreate in a virtual world everything that you see in the real world.
So it's a little bit like Roger Rabbit. I mean, you have the opportunity to have Andy playing Caesar acting alongside James, who's playing Will Rodman, the human scientist. And so we shoot that scene where the two of them are interacting. And of course, that's great. James doesn't have to act against thin air.
And so while we're acting, he is not in an ape suit. He's in, these gray pajama-looking things with sensors all over his body, and he has dots on his face that will help the effects team read his expressions in the computer. So you would think that acting opposite somebody like that and trying to think that they were a chimpanzee would be very difficult. But from the first scene that we had together on, it's been easy because Andy is so good at the behavior and he's so connected to what he's doing and, the other actors, that he allows my imagination to take over, and I really can treat him as a very intelligent chimpanzee with a chimpanzee. And that's basically, what he's giving me there, this believable behavior, is basically what you look for from any other actor you're acting opposite. If they're good, they'll pull you into the scene and the circumstance. And so that's exactly what he's done.
But what you then have to do is you then have to take Andy out of the shot and you have to redo the scene again. And that's what's called a clean plate, where you are doing Roger Rabbit, where James has to perform against nothing. And that's really challenging for everybody because he's not reacting off of anything. he's having to basically create the energy of that scene.
So the time he feels silliest is when the shot is a close-up on Andy, but he's not there. So basically the camera's just shooting a wall, and I'm acting to that wall. But it's fine. I mean, you kind of just chalk it up to something that's necessary to make a movie like this.
I think the thing that makes Andy Serkis so good at performance capture is that he's a great actor. He has a great understanding of character, and he becomes so emotionally invested in those characters that sometimes, even though he's dressed in a funny suit and he's got markers and green dots on his face, you watch him, on set and during the takes, and you're just completely there. You believe that he's a chimpanzee, even though nothing in his physical appearance would tell you otherwise. So, yeah, he's a top-notch actor.
And cut there. That's one bad motion.
I wasn't exactly sure whether they were going to be using real monkeys. I mean, obviously I knew that Caesar was going to be something a little special, but when I heard that Andy Serkis was doing it, I was extraordinarily excited. Not only am I a huge fan, but I knew that he's going to make it a lot easier for me. The fact that I could react against someone, and it's terrifying seeing a human act that primitive, really, so that massively helps.
He really has nailed this kind of work, and it's the future in a way.
He's the one that brings these scenes to life, and he's a wonderful actor.
Performance capture is about getting inside the soul of whatever character you're playing, whether it's human or whether it's a creature or whether it's an ape. And I think that's the real thing that people haven't understood about performance capture, and they think performance capture is about servicing a visual effect, and it's none of those things. The emotional center of the performance will only come from an actor. And with Caesar, it's actually a brilliant tool.
Encapsulated within this extraordinary person is this talent that raises everybody else up. And it was amazing to see, and it including me. When you get onto a set with somebody like Andy Serkis, he has a spirit and an effervescence about him that, all of the other apes, he became the leader of those apes. And it wasn't through dictating or in any way dominating any of the others. It was all about basically leading by example. And a lot of our actors that were playing the apes were from theatre or from a stunt background. And in a way, the story mirrored the actual making of the movie, because he actually allowed them to believe in the fact that this was possible, that we could do this. And I think, that's a really rare breed, that you get an actor that is that engaging and that encouraging and also brilliant.
Caesar's home.
We are on the set of the Golden Gate Bridge. This is where the final battle sequence takes place. This is the largest mocap volume in the world, and the first time it's been done outside. So Wyatt is basically changing all the rules with motion capture.
It was a world first. We had to create the Golden Gate Bridge as a live, physically built set, but we then had to have performance-captured apes on that bridge, and we therefore had to use all of the technology that Wyatt brought to a real location.
The timing for us is lucky. We came right at a time when Jim Cameron and Wyatt had done something that had never been done before. Joe Letteri and his group down there had perfected this performance capture. We were shooting exteriors and performance capture. No movie's ever done that.
Action!
Well, what we did is we created these cameras that were able to see all the performance capture markers and information in daylight. It was kind of setting those up and hiding them so that when you're photographing the set, you don't see the cameras, but they're there and they're recording what the actors are doing. And then you have an actor who is in his full mocap suit, and he's in there acting with everyone that is in on the performance with him.
It's a one big Velcro piece suit. They've upgraded to these infrared sensors the cameras can pick up outside in daylight. This is breaking new ground. It's really nice to be outside on the Golden Gate Bridge with real live action actors and cars as apes.
That was awesome.
There were a whole lot of other things that we had to take into account, you know, the heat and the moisture, and so we built little closures over the motion capture cameras so they wouldn't get fried if it started to drizzle a little bit.
Unfortunately, because we were doing the motion capture in the photography that we were doing, you couldn't just put cameras wherever you wanted to. So we ended up having a fixed row of cameras along the green screen wall, but there were also cameras that were on movable towers that we could kind of position in and out.
We came up with this quick recalibration process where we had the object of known dimensions and they would be put into the space to quickly recalibrate the cameras because we had to move them so much.
So I'm about to calibrate the motion capture system with this device here we call the wand. It's a known device. All the cameras are about to watch me wave it around. Looks a little silly, but let's just do what we do here. This is our other calibration device. It's we call it the L frame. It looks like the coordinate system and a graph. So we place it out here so the cameras can see it. And then between the wand and the L frame, we can figure out where we are.
Golden Gate Bridge set was huge. I mean, so it's 6 lanes of traffic with sidewalks on either side. And so the challenge of trying to actually see what was being recorded there was pretty extreme because we had to be high and far away in order to be able to mount the cameras to cover the whole set. But you got actors with little dots glued to their costumes that are far away, and each of these cameras has to be able to track all the dots that are going on amongst all the cars and the reflections and figure out what's going on to discern the movement of all these apes running around.
With the second unit stuff, they know what they're going to shoot, but a lot of the choreography happens 10 minutes before we're going to shoot it. So they'll choreograph a bit where all of the apes are coming over the railing and attacking the police officers. And then the next sequence where we're all parading over the cars, that's all real.
The boom, and it starts to lift up, and then maybe somebody grabs
and
or
then,
whatever.
And then it's like boom, boom, we all walk right in. Teeth really help you get you in character. Just like pop them in, you're there.
So the technique that we use is to first capture the scene with the performer, and then afterwards you'll do other things to try to fill in the missing gaps. Like you'll record the whole scene again so that we have information of what the camera might expect to see behind him. And so you have to paint in a lot of things to help take the performer out of the set. There's a lot of information that has to get gathered to recreate in a virtual world everything that you see in the real world.
So much of what you're having to replace is very reflective because it's all about just a bunch of shiny cars. So you take an ape performer who's running down a row of cars and you're not only having to paint out them, but you're also having to deal with their reflection that's in the car they're standing on, the car in front of them, the car behind them. If the camera moves from here to here, the reflection changes quite a bit. The trickiest part about the whole thing was just trying to make sure we actually had coverage. We had up to 80 cars basically lined up in rows. There were lots of occlusion issues. You'd have 8 performers that would be dipping in between and in amongst these vehicles.
Action!
One of the biggest challenges from a practical point of view for an animator is the sheer number of apes that we have in some of these shots.
When you're talking about apes within that particular sequence, you're having to shoot 6 or 7 performance capture artists because that's really the maximum that you can capture at any one time. And they have to represent 150 apes. You then have to block everything accordingly. You have to block all the extras in exactly the same way over and over again.
Background action and action!
When they shot it on the set, there was 3 or 4 actors that they had that they were actually motion capturing. So we had those guys to start with, but then we would have to go back to our motion capture library where we have all these random run cycles and jumps and climbing over cars and start adding all those in as well. So a shot that originally had 3 ape performers in it ends up having 150 apes in it.
It's getting the scale of the bridge. I mean, we could only build a section of the bridge, and then our plan was then we would extend the set digitally.
We actually created, a full digital set of the Golden Gate Bridge, and we created the surrounding hills and the ocean. It's quite a massive set that we actually ended up building. When we first started, we started looking at the sequences that were being turned over, and we looked at the previs that was being done, and we started to try to break down where those actions were happening across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Starts out with seeing the live plate shots of the bridge and getting a lot of photo reference of the actual bridge as well as the one that was on set. And from that, then it goes to the models department, and the models has to figure out how to match everything exactly. Once all that stuff passes through the models department, it comes to us. Then we start all the procedural texturing.
And then that it's passed off to the lighting department to do the final render. There are lots of digital car extensions. In addition to just the cars that we see going off into the fog, there's also interaction with those vehicles. During the shoot, the special effects teams had rigged up some of the vehicles for those clean passes that we shot with hydraulic rigs and things that would actually shake the vehicles as if there were apes, running over them. We're doing digital hood and car roof replacements so that we can actually get dents and dings and take weight under the ape.
It was amazing. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life physically. The beautiful thing about it was that we got to use and interact with real props. And we were jumping over real cars. We were smashing real windows. It was something that you didn't have to pretend.
We used our APE performance, we used real stunts, hundreds of cars, we used hundreds of extras, and there's an extraordinary atmosphere, but it uses every part of the bridge. It's quite an event.
So that was one of the main breakthroughs of the film, was being able to really complete the two performance capture worlds coming together. What we're hoping people take away from what Wyatt brought to the film is just believing what you see. We really just enjoy making films where you can sit there and look at it and say, wow, I didn't know this existed, but it must.